Do you think that there's a natural state of being when we remove our own maybe patterns that bring in, let's say, limitations to distractions, through pains and sufferings, all the noise that cause us to maybe get off balance? Is there a state of being that we are supposed to naturally be in with ourselves and each other?
That is a very difficult question. I think the Buddhism would answer that question in the form that when you reach such a state, you realize that none of it really matters. And because of that none of it really matterness, you fall into the most natural position, which is just acting according to what needs to be done, instead of acting out of a place of reaction to how you want things to be done. And there's a distinction there, because understanding what really is one thing, and seeing things through how most of us see the reality most of the time, which is what we think it is. Now, it's a very difficult thing to explain with words if you haven't experienced states that are close to that. But some of us have this feeling, sometimes haphazardly, when we just watch TV or just stare at a wall. But the feeling is, you know how sometimes you would sit on the couch and out of nowhere you would all of a sudden, it just dawns on you. It's just a kind of like, it's almost like it just descends from above, and it's almost like this feeling of like, it's all good. Mm-hmm. Like everything is exactly where it needs to be. Do you ever have this feeling?
Yeah, there's a few times where I just kind of feel.
But it's rare, right?
Yeah.
Like truly, like you just, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's the bullseye of the mandala. So essentially in all the practices of, of meditation, the way I understand it, is to reach a state in which that is almost like second nature to you. But according to those traditions, they try to reach it from different perspectives. Actually, that's not entirely true, because Vipassana is more about trying to transcend that as well. But that's a whole other conversation. I don't fully agree with that. But for example, in Dzogchen, the goal is to have the experience that there is no self. They basically guide you to this place where you trying to experience the fact. There's this phrase, for example, that is keep being repeated, which is, there's no one here that all of this is happening to. And they just keep saying it. There's no one here that all of this is happening to. And at first you hear this sentence and you think, well, this is just some kind of, mysterious way of looking at it. I get it. I get what they're trying to do. But the more you practice, all of a sudden it starts creeping up on you, which is, oh no, this is not a metaphor. This is not a way of saying things. This is true. There's no one here that all of this is happening to. So there's just experience. The me is a construct. Now, we understand that with language, but it's a different thing to embody that experience, to fully have like this just experience. Now, I've had it a couple of times, not for long, but it's, I think I described it before in the podcast. One of the most outstanding things about it is how non-outstanding it is. It's like, it's just so matter of fact. Just like that feeling, this gesture you did with your hands, it's exactly what it is. That's how I know you know what I mean. It's just this like kind of like this perfect, like nothing needs to be added. Yeah, you don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It's almost like the world is like, relax. I got this. It's all good, right?
Yeah.
So it's that, but the I got this is just a second thing here. It comes from realizing that there's no one to defend, there's no one to get hurt, there's no one here that all of this is happening to. Mm. So it's just happening. And when you embody that, a whole new world of experience opens up to you. Mm. And I would say that would be the closest to me being able to perceive a state that is that natural. Now, it's a lot of work to try and get to that state more often than not. Because most of the time we're just locked in our heads thinking that we're poor little me doing this thing, didn't go my way, you know. And again, some people are a little bit more committed and advanced towards like, you know, understanding the world from a perspective of gratitude and trying to help others, and that brings you closer to that place. But I would say that is the closest to like a natural state, which is understanding how things really are, which requires a lot of work of trying to really pay attention to what is actually happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is not happening.
And what is not happening. Yeah.
I like that. Just the remove of self and identity. Take that all away, and everything is just happening.
There's no one to blame.
Yeah.
Because there's no one here that all this is happening to. No matter what, you can always circle back to that.
Sure.
See what I mean?
There's no one here this is happening
all of this
to.
is happening to. But it's they keep just repeating it. There's a lot of little tricks like that. So they for hours they would sit, and I think this is actually more Zen. This is not Dzogchen, but in Zen they would raise their hand. Actually, I'm not sure. Somebody's going to yell at me on YouTube, but whatever. I think I'm right. But they would basically, you know, do gestures. Like they would raise their arm, and they won't say, "I'm raising my arm." They would just keep repeating, "Arm is being raised. Arm is being lowered." And they keep doing that until it hits you. It's like, you, the thing you call me, have no idea how you're doing this. How is this happening? Like, do it and then try and think, like, how is this happening? You just kind of will it, but how is it going up? Like,
yeah, for sure.
You, the thing you feel yourself, you're not
I'm not
doing
even thinking
this.
about it.
Yeah. How is this happening? Right? So when you do that enough, all of a sudden it starts to kind of pop like more and more. You're like, whoa, like there's no one here that all this is happening to. And that's very, very liberating. There's another trick that I heard actually Sam Harris talk about this, and I tried it, and that's the one that worked for me the most before I started doing Vipassana more seriously. And obviously hours of meditation would definitely help you to get there faster. But before I did that, one of the tricks, it's taken from the idea is much older, but he was talking about it in the context of a book called On Having No Head. And the idea there, the central idea is that you basically place your attention on an object, preferably something natural, like a tree or like, for example, this plant. And then you drive your attention back into where you believe the source is. So it's almost like, not the source, I mean like the source of attention, like you, right? But it's important that you don't frame it as me, but just kind of ask yourself, like it's a very, very subtle gesture, and you just ask yourself, who is looking, right? And usually if you just think of that concept with words, you say, who is looking, even though you're not saying it, you're kind of thinking like, what do you mean? Like me, like me, I'm looking, but that's conceptual. So if you really pay attention, when you try to do this thing, you basically just look at the object and you hold it in view, and then you try and, while you're looking at it, it's almost like you're looking at the air in between you and it, but not really. You're looking at where you believe the attention is towards it. So it's like the thing you feel attention, it's almost like you're twisting back and you're trying to like look back at yourself through looking at that object. Essentially, you're trying to kind of like do this like shift of like trying to find where's that I that I believe is looking at this. And you keep doing that. Like it's momentary. It's not supposed to be something that you do for a while. So if it doesn't happen immediately, you just reframe, do it again. It's almost like immediate. And if you do this enough, all of a sudden something will happen. It's almost like the matrix jams for a second, and you're like, whoa. Like all of a sudden it kind of snaps you out of it. You're like, I can't find the thing I thought I was. Like you think you're here, right? But then where here? Is it in here? It feels like it's behind my eyes, right? But where? Where exactly? And then you keep trying to find it.
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
where
yeah.
exactly is it? And then eventually you discover, and this is according to like the central idea in the book, is that eventually you get to a very conclusive place where you completely eradicated all the possible places where you thought it might be and you didn't find it. So you conclusively land on the understanding that it's actually not there. It's nowhere. There's nowhere that you this I are. It's just like it's a fucking mind
sentence.
Yeah, I are baboon.
Yeah, yeah.